United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Jason Tron.
Here.
Julie Simpson. Jeff Bard.
Here.
Robin Cleek.
Here.
Wes Poland here. Matt Jacobs.
Here.
Sonali Patel.
Here. 6 present, 1 absent. She had mentioned she might be a bit late, so she'll join us. Anybody wishes to public comment? Going once, twice, gone. Staff recognition. Done sketch here. Presentation by Ms. Lund.
Hello, everybody. I want to take this opportunity to thank you. Additional section of 4th grade at Aspen School, and to fill that section, very pleased.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Moving to the south side.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to Hawthorn. Thank you. Thank you.
Elsa's hi.
Thank you.
We have no more. If nobody has any concern, could I move the discussion items and then do the consent agenda?
Sure.
The first discussion item will be the 2017-18 budgetary review by Mr. Singh.
I'll hop in here real quick. Mr. Singh's going to provide a presentation. You have a copy for yourself. At the next board meeting is scheduled for approval of the budget. So as you're getting information today, obviously, feel free to ask questions. But if something comes up after you've had a chance to digest the presentation, feel free to email Abe and myself, and we'll get you those answers before the next board meeting. Also, just so you know, I've been in contact with legislators today. They were having a big conversation on some potential budget compromises for funding, and it seemed to collapse there. The compromise did not go through. Then they were going into some caucuses to discuss next steps and what might be happening. Have not heard yet from them on sort of the outcome of that.
About 35 minutes ago, they went in to go for a vote.
Well, and I have not heard back from them, so it's a long vote then, obviously. So it is in play right now as they're trying to figure that out. But just for the folks that are here or watching, please understand that all the schools in Illinois receive no money from the state until they pass something for school funding. So at this point, as we move forward, our school, Hawthorn, just like all the others, are not receiving any funds from the state until some sort of funding mechanism is passed. So, Abe?
Julie joined us at 7:02 p.m.
Nick?
Yes.
The school funding compromise passed with 73 votes.
Just happened. Very good. Thank you very much.
In real time here. folks.
Real-time updates. This is better than Monday Night Football.
It's amazing how quickly these things happen, yet the details aren't known, and they're so impactful, these decisions. They happen quickly, but at the end, it's reactive where we find out what the details are, what the implications are as well, which I'll be sharing as it's disclosed. But let's talk about the budget as we continue to move forward. This is the calendar for the budget year. It's a one-year cycle, and so September 26th, 2016, we approved the calendar at that point, authorized persons to work on the budget, and then as well as we started the levy process. So it's a full year cycle. We're getting towards the end. September 11th, 2017, the final budget will be adopted at the next meeting. So we're getting towards the end. Source of funding, 9.5% is state funding. Pales compared to local, but still very impactful if we're not getting payments. The revenue assumptions, it's at the first CPI is 0.7, the second is 2.1%, and that will kind of drive the increase in local revenue. We have budgeted for the state revenue to remain flat. We have also budgeted to receive our 2 payments we didn't get last year from the MCATs, as well as to get at least 2 for this year, so that's what's been budgeted. We've also assumed federal funding will be up by $300,000 as it relates to title grants. Expenses by fund, the biggest is the Ed Fund. It's in blue, 73%. And then we've got debt services, and then it's a close third with transportation. Well, it's O&M and then transportation. They are close, 6.3 and 6.7%. Assumptions for expenses, there is an increase in curricular needs. Technology, we've added Chromebooks, Chromebook leases as part of our one-to-one initiative. Instructional spending is up by 5.5%. Primarily it's salary and benefits, as well as a few additional positions. Slight decrease in instructional support. The IMRF fund was excessively high. We're spending that down, shifting those monies to the Ed Fund for this year. And then finally, the new kindergarten building, $12 million to be spent out of debt services per the direction of our auditors that it should be paid out of debt services as it's a lease agreement with the Park District. So now I'm going to share some additional information. We're going to look at by object. So you can see salaries, the expenses, what was budgeted last year, the actual, and also what we've budgeted for 2018. Did analysis comparing the budget versus the 2017 actual. You'll see salaries and benefits went up by about 4% cumulatively, so that's overall. If you lump together all of the salaries for every person within the district. Supplies and materials went up by about 17%. And capital outlay, that'll be the one-to-one devices, the Chromebooks, that's impacting that difference in budget. So if you go back last 10 years, here's kind of the trend for expenses, the blue being salaries, the green being benefits. You can see an overall, an overall trend upward through the years. If you pull out only salaries, which is the blue, and look at that analysis, you can see the trends. Again, this is the salary for the entire district. It's all encompassing. It's the overall net effect, so this could be the impact of additional positions as well over time. You will see in 2016, there was a dip to negative 2%, so it dropped by 2%. Attrition plays a role in this as well over time. And then you will see in 2017 an uptick to about 5.5%, and then budgeting for 4%. So there is some changes over time. Benefits can be impacted as well. If you look at what happened in 2013 at the loss ratio, it was a 22% increase in benefit expenses this year. However, our loss ratio has been favorable for the last 4 years. It's been, it actually went down in 2015 and then back up to about 4%. So it's been kind of hovering around 3 to 4% the last 2 to 3 years. I like this graph. It's one I've used in the past. This is the fund balance throughout the school year. And you'll see in September and June, there's a spike up. That's when we get our local revenue. That's the big influx for the year. The red being from 3 years ago, so purple is 2016-17, 15-16 is green, and 14-15 is red. You can see the progress throughout the years. And then where we end up in June, that's when we have our AFR, that's when we get scored on our fund balance. It's in the month of June. You'll see that this year we ended at $40,246,000. Fund balance to revenue ratio, that's something that's scored on our financial profile score in the audit. That's the number we want to stay above. As long as we're above that number in the month of June, we score favorably within the audit. You'll notice that that May is the low point at 20 million. So there's some argument that can be made that May is the true metric to measure how much money you actually have, notwithstanding the June payments. This is the tentative budget summary. You've seen this slide before. It's been updated. Some of the things that I've updated, TRS on behalf payments, it was originally budgeted with this tentative budget at 14 million. Going to revise it to 22 million. The actual for last year was 19.23 million, so it's quite high. This is the on behalf payments made by the state. We never see the revenue, we never see the expenses. It's a number that's provided to us by the state to note within our books. It's a very large number. It's about half of our entire expenditures at 22 million. We did make some slight adjustments. We reduced revenue by 150,000. That was another category which I thought was budgeted a bit too high. We've offset that with a reduction of 150,000 in expenses, 100 in the ed fund, and 50,000 in O&M, primarily supplies and materials. And then lastly, the additional item that's been updated, which is the resolution. There will be a resolution to transfer funds from working cash to debt services, and that'll be for the kindergarten building. The capital projects transfer will be for the summer project work that's pretty much done at this point. And then there will be a bit more to reconcile the negative balance in the capital projects fund of 121,000, which will leave us with a slight positive for the fund balance at June 30th, 2018. As far as the flow of money for the project, the kindergarten project, you'll see it's coming out of working cash and then flowing through debt services on the revenue as well as the expense side. Okay, same slide, but I've highlighted 4 cells. This is the numbers that are analyzed in the AFR. When you look at your expense to revenue ratio, it's one of the financial profile score metrics that they assess. They look at the net effect of revenue minus expenses for the operational funds, which is ed, O&M, and transportation. Plus, you include the revenue from working cash, and overall, cumulatively, we would have a surplus of about $100,000. That is it for the presentation. I do have a link, if you don't mind me presenting. This is Dr. Jacoby from, he was down in Springfield. He's the director of IASBO.
Hello, this is Michael Jacoby, Executive Director, Illinois ASBO. As many of you know, today is a day in Springfield where the legislature has come together for an emergency session to address school funding reform. There's been much talk over the last week about a negotiated settlement between the Republicans and the Democrats. Today we'll find out exactly what happens with that. Likely what will take place first is caucuses by both parties, and then some decision as to whether to bring that bill forward, which includes all the negotiations. Several of the areas that we're concerned about have to do with voucher tax credits and what those would mean for public education. We oppose those and have noted that in one of our advocacy alerts this morning. We also are very concerned about a provision that would include a potential voter-initiated referendum for districts that are over 110% of adequacy. Again, those have been issues that we've opposed from the beginning, but they are likely within that compromise. We'll see today exactly how things go down. I'll give an update after it's all over. We may end up with a problem today of having Democrats sufficient enough to vote for the compromise because of the because of the tuition tax credits. If that takes place, then we'll be back to ground zero, talking about maybe some partial legislation tomorrow and maybe separating some of these issues into separate bills. Again, this is still uncertain, but we'll let you know as soon as we have any more information.
We've heard that number throughout the day, 110% adequacy. This district's at 85%, so we would not be negatively impacted with that adequacy benchmark at 110%. Okay, any questions?
Any questions for Nick?
So a few meetings ago, I asked if, with the tentative budget, if we were going to look at areas where we might be able to reduce expenditures to try to reduce the tax burden on the community, given the comments that we've received related to reasons why the referendum failed. Also, within Vernon Hills in the last couple of weeks, we've gotten our property tax assessments. So my question is whether you've looked at areas where we can put pencil to paper and try to reduce our expenditures a little bit more than we have?
We had looked at some. You want to share?
we did analyze supplies and materials. And of course, the greatest impact, it's salary and benefits. That's the biggest chunk of our budget. So any meaningful, significant impact would have to be in that quadrant, that area. But we are continuously looking at things operationally, such as utilities, electricity, making sure that we're hedging that effectively. And so, these other objects, they pale in comparison in size relative to salaries and benefits, and we continue to assess our needs to make sure we're as efficient and as streamlined as possible.
In the salary and benefits area, we're watching the enrollment numbers. In the flow of the enrollment, depending on where the kids increase, depends on if you might need to have some extra supports for them in that. So we're watching that and trying to be as cognizant of the dollars as we can be, but keep class sizes and instructional programs reasonable.
What about in terms of operating expenditures? Supplies, materials, things like that? I know we've entered into co-ops to try to reduce the costs, but what about looking at areas like building budgets and things like that?
Well, the building budgets have been frozen for, I want to say, almost 8 years, if not longer. They haven't received any additional. We're trying to stay within those budgets that they have, and we've been pretty good with being conservative with how they spend, so we end up getting a little bit, but the amount of dollars that we might be able to cut out of there or save in some of those would be small. Every little bit helps, but the biggest chunk is in the salary and benefits piece. We try to do cooperative purchasing when we can, like with paper products and things of that sort, and try to do shared services like we do with the Lincoln Building, trying to reduce some of the costs of some of that staff. I'm not sure that we've got significant amount areas that we can reduce it that would show up in the tax bill at this point. I don't know if you had anything to share.
No, I mean, we're going to continue to look at our service agreements to find areas within O&M as well as transportation where we can find efficiencies and savings. Building automation, things such as that, we're going to try and find efficiencies and try and get those numbers as tight as possible.
We're hoping to see reductions in some of the things from the one-to-one that we've been researching and finding out. We're hoping to see some reduction in like copiers. But the amount of, when we talk about how many copies we make, the amount of reduction that we might be able to get of it doesn't turn into huge dollars in some of those. Some of it is the maintenance of the buildings. If we continue to maintain them well, like we have, it help reduce our costs to run the building. The Town Line building is the most expensive one to run because of the 3 floors, 4 floors for heating and cooling. But maintaining the good seals on the doors, the work that James Staples does with his crew to make sure those things are up. I don't know there's some significance there. It's really in the personnel is the biggest piece.
So the capital outlay accounts for the one-to-one devices. What accounts for the 17% increase in the supply and materials? Over $500,000 increase there.
Yeah, so supplies and materials, we did have an increase in curriculum supplies for this year, about $150,000. We originally budgeted at $250,000, so we did scale that slightly. But it's kind of spread throughout with supplies and materials, and we can definitely come back with a detailed breakdown of that for you.
And that's 17% over $500,000 there increase. So it's a significant amount of money there in supplies and materials.
But wasn't that always planned for
Right. We've been trying to get
the
to
last
that.
few years to keep increasing the curriculum budget a little bit?
Thought we were at the end of our increase already. Can we go up to 750 already? And or is this
We didn't
is this
go to
the year?
750 last
Not-
year. This is the
not
year we
yet.
were
So
trying
this
to
is
get
the year
750.
going from
Right, right.
500.
We didn't last year. We didn't have the space in the budget.
Okay.
This year we moved it up, but we've even trimmed it back. It's not all the way up to the full 750 at this point. Trying to just stay on point with
So that
those.
was only what 150, 125, 150 of that
It was 250, we brought it down to 150 at this
to
point.
150. So then there's still another 350 of increase in supplies and materials somewhere.
And it's not significant in one bucket. It's generically spread out. We can summarize it for you and send that out.
We can get that information. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you the particulars that's within there, but we can tell you where those dollars.
It just stands out in the,
Right, right.
in the numbers.
It just seems like all the little things that may seem insignificant, if they're added together, can be a larger sum.
Absolutely.
We'll look to bring details to you before the next board meeting on that particular piece. And we'll reevaluate some of the things we've done to try to do some cost savings and try to give you more insight into that as well.
And of that 4% increase in salary and benefits, and of course, I know some of that is just taking on extra staff to accommodate the growing enrollment, but do you know approximately off the top of your head what the breakdown is in staff, like teacher increases versus like central office administration increases?
Sure. We do have that information. That's something we can send out to you this week.
Okay, I
That
don't remember
breakdown.
off the top of my head what the contract said, so.
Well, it's different for every employee depending on which cell they're in, who's making a lane change and who's not.
Okay.
Things like that have a great impact. There's a wide spectrum.
Okay, thanks.
So the agreement in the contract was a certain percentage.
Right.
within that. And then within that, for folks that, that as you increase in your education, you might change a lane, that might have a percentage increase. So we can
Right.
give you rough estimates what those are.
Okay. Thanks.
Any further questions? No. The next topic of discussion is the update on the kindergarten center by Wes and Nick.
Let me just make a quick note here of some things that I needed to do.
Sure.
Sorry.
Oh, we have our next meeting is scheduled for this Thursday, 3:30.
Sorry, I'm just trying to make some notes for
Okay.
that. Apologies. Yes, right. We have a scheduled meeting this Thursday to get the team back together. We had a break there for a period of time due to vacations or getting school started up. And so I talked to Jason Lemke, having folks come together, catch up to where we were at, review the soil tests, the preliminaries I mentioned before. He did get a report. I have that. He's going to give it to his engineer to look at, but he thinks it looks very good at this point, that the soil borings came out in our favor. So that should help us with the need for building either a one-story or two-story. The wetlands should not be an issue for us to have to worry about doing any specific foundational work to address that. So at this point, that looks positive. We are also, Jason is looking for some site visit locations for the team to go and see some of the concepts that are being talked about in the design and see them in operations. So we're hoping to get this wrapped up at some point in September to bring recommendations to the board. But we've got a little bit of work we need to go into and see those.
By second meeting in September?
Hopefully, yeah. At
And
this
what
point,
would, what would that be? That would be brought to the board at that point?
a recommended design if you approved it, then we would go to full detailed drawings to go out for bids.
So in general, are we still on schedule for what we had?
Yes,
previously thought
actually,
about?
we're just a few weeks off, but it doesn't, right now, the schedule was if we would have been on time and made a recommendation at this meeting or next meeting, and you go out to bids, and everything fell into place with building, it would have been done in January of a particular year. The chances are we're not going to move kids mid-year from one building in kindergarten to the next building. That gives us a little bit of play in time right now in the planning phase. As long as we hit the time for our bid window, which will be in January, February, we'll still be good for a construction project to still meet our needs. So we had a little bit of extra time in there to work on the design.
So that's a little different than what I thought Jason Lemke had said last time he was here, where it would be more of a move-in mid-year, like over winter break. They would move everything actually in, and then kids would start back after winter break there. So now are you talking about fall of 2019 for move-in?
I don't remember the exact.
Because it can't be 2018 at this point.
Well, and I don't think it was fall of I don't think it was January of 2018.
No, 19.
Yeah, it'd be of
Right.
19, right?
But
So-
now it's fall
Right, but
of
if
19.
it were January of 2019, we probably wouldn't have moved kids mid-year from one building to the next.
I'm not saying it's a good idea.
Right, right.
I'm just saying
But-
what
so
my
it
understanding
should-
was last time he was here was his update was it would be a mid-year move-in.
We could still potentially hit that, but in the design phase, if we take a little longer, if you get done in January of 2019, or you get done in March of 2019, if you were going to move kids, if you're going to move them after holiday break, but we probably wouldn't necessarily do that. So if you got it done in March and you waited till to the fall to open it up, you're still in the same situation if it were done in January, if it were done in March. We need to make sure the
Other
design.
than you're supporting a building and keeping it functional when nobody's using it.
Right. But, well, that's why if it's done in March, you would. I'm not sure if I'm following your question.
I'm just saying it's to have an empty shell sitting there is
Well,
not the most
the sooner
efficient
we
use.
get the kids out of the other schools, the more
The
room
better, but if we're not
we
going to do a
have.
mid-year move-in, then
Right.
there's sort of no rush to put a shovel in the ground for fall of 2019.
But it's a little early right now, the design. But if you're building a building you want for 40 or 50 years, you want to make sure the design is right.
Oh, totally agree.
And so that's what we're trying to do. If it were, hey, you could have this done for next year, there'd be a little different heat on that potentially.
I had a couple of questions, some which you might be able to answer, some I think Jason and Lamb would answer.
Mhm.
We are going to go out to bid right now in a few months' time. Considering what Houston and Texas is going through, how much is our cost for construction going to go up?
We don't
Because lumber is going to go up, and
we
so
don't
all the
yeah.
reconstruction they will have to do is like
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know because this has occurred. Last time they did a quick cost estimate where we will be on budget or a little below for any of the concepts we're looking at. A storm of this magnitude
No, that's why I said,
is
like-
going to impact all. I don't know what that.
No, but that's what I'm
yeah.
saying is like, I know they can't probably give us numbers, but with their professional expertise, within the next couple of weeks, would they be able to at least tell us, like, is it, how close would we? I mean, I know they can't, but they would know something of this magnitude, how much will it affect certain materials? And would we be able to estimate that? That would be my biggest concern. Can we? And,
Right. I will ask him. I will tell you. I would estimate that a storm of this magnitude will have some impact on steel and wood
Lumber and
potentially
stuff.
because of the amount of repairs that are going to be needed on a project of this sort. But we won't know, even in a couple of weeks, we won't know the size of that. It's probably going to be a 3-month window before we can get a good estimate of all the repairs and things that will have to be done down there. But it will have an impact potentially on supplies, which will have an impact on potential
so
costs.
could we keep that as the minute they can find out, we need
Yep.
to know, kind of like whenever they can estimate, we need to know,
Yeah, and we-
like how close or away we are from our targets.
And we can.
Well, but the cost of construction, we won't know until we get the bids back.
Right.
So even if Jason tries to estimate that impact, we really won't know for sure until companies that are bidding on the work give us the bids back when the proposal goes out, the request.
And we can look historically to see what Katrina or others might have done in the way of construction projects around the nation. They can look previously and see what had happened, but it'll be a little time before we know for sure. But I'll ask them to do their best guesstimate.
And anything from the village and the library?
Working with the village on an easement, but still they're going through that process, and that looks promising to go out the back of the property instead of the front for our buses. Since we don't connect with the library, they'll partner with us with providing library services, and our kids can go over to the library and they'll bring stuff to the library. But that's kind of at the point where we're at there. Their addition's still going to be on the back of the building when they get around to that. They were not. One time we had looked at even brief conversations. Could we build a way to connect? But at this point, with the need for a road to go around the building, we won't be connecting. So, still working with the library on the servicing part of it and providing access for our kids to go there.
Yeah,
and-
that they were always
right.
very.
But the actual connecting to the building, it doesn't look like that's going to be necessarily happening because of the design requirements from the village on that at this point. The village has been working with us. I've dropped off the letter One thing I forgot.
Okay.
I dropped them. Can you print out a copy quickly of the position paper? Thank you. The position paper had been delivered. I did have conversations with a developer that had talked to the village for new townhomes, and the village is saying no. The schools are at capacity, and you could do something else. You want to do retirement, you want to do storage, something along those lines, but they did give a hard no on additional housing that might draw new students at this point. That conversation was confirmed with the village in a conversation with them a few days later, just on had they met and what else was there, and they said the same thing. So I do think the village has heard the message that we are full and we're at capacity now, and anything else is just putting us over the top. So I know that was nice to hear from a developer, sort of unprompted. They just said, they're not interested in helping us in that direction. So working on that with them, and so we're still working on the easement piece for that. And they still want us to go around the building for access.
For the buses.
Right, yeah. The buses can go out the back, but we'll need a road that comes around to the front for access. So that does drive some design features.
Okay.
I mean, I know we're not quite there yet, but I mean, has there given any thought to whether like the Deer Path community is going to be walkers or whether we're going to bus everybody?
For the kindergarten building? At this point, I was saving that conversation for just a little bit later because we're focusing on design. I do think the board should consider, as it is a kindergarten building, even if it's within a mile, that they might provide bus servicing. I haven't been able to do a cost estimate yet on how many buses, so I need to give that for you. But just on my initial response would be if you could provide bus services for all kindergartners to that building, I think it does two things. One is saves us additional cars dropping off, because many of the parents will drop off their little ones if they live within that mile and a half radius and not have them walk. So it may help us with transportation pieces in that regard. And the other, it might be a safety issue. Just, I haven't got a count I haven't asked my principals yet, just kind of give me an estimate how many kindergartners walk to school that might fall in there. And I thought I might do a survey to parents of current kindergartners, that live within a mile and a half. Do you drive in bad weather? Do you, those types
Yeah,
of things.
because that mile and a half would encompass north of 60, so it would require people to cross 60, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, if
So-
you have to cross 60, you automatically get transportation.
Is that what it is? That's what
Uh-huh.
I'm asking. I wasn't
But
sure.
I think just the initial
an
thought would
unsafe
be if we
crossing.
could provide transportation, it would be nice to do that, just to keep them all on the same playing field.
But we need to run numbers of
Gotta
people
run-
taking as well as the
Right,
busing
right.
service of
Got-
how much increase and
Right.
stuff.
Well, don't forget, unless that kindergartner is the oldest or an only child in Deer Path, those parents are oftentimes driving anyway to get their other kids to other buildings. So it may not cut that many cars by offering bus service.
Depending on the start time, because
That's what I was
another
gonna
piece of
say,
this for
yeah.
the district as we get closer is looking at our start times across the district. We'll have to figure out what's a good time for the building, but we also then will have to look at what our current practices are. And if there are any adjustments that we want to make, that's the time to make it when you're opening a new building. But you also don't want such a big disparity if somebody's dropping off at the middle school and at the kindergarten. If it's an hour between, it really presents issues for some families. So that's something we'll have to address as well. But that's all tied into
Well,
that.
and that's what you're going to have because Deer Path is Aspen, other than dual language, who gets bused anyway. I mean, we're not going to be starting kindergarten at 7:55 in the morning, so that would require parents to make 2 trips out rather than 1. So,
It's early. So we are looking at, I think the start times and the transportation all play into that. We'll be looking at that.
Any specific questions towards the kindergarten center, as in the design from Lemke and Village, or any other concerns?
When you guys go on these site visits, is it possible to bring back pictures for us?
Yes. We'll do some videos. It's a nice thing with the phones. Pictures are fine, but videos, and we're,
Well,
I can give
We
you my
will.
GoPro.
pardon me?
You can wear my GoPro.
Look, there's Dr. Sorelli running down the hallway with the GoPro. This is what happens when it's recess. Woo! Yeah, we will. No, more than pictures, we'll try to do some videos.
Okay,
to
thank
give
you.
you comprehension.
Anything else? Anything? Okay, next item of discussion is enrollment updates. Since the school started, we have numbers,
All right, so.
lots of them.
I've been sending to you the increases and decreases in the enrollment as they occur. Just for you to know, this is a very volatile time for enrollment. I'm bringing up some numbers for us.
Could we go one school at a time, because just so that we know exactly how, so everybody gets on the same page and any questions we have, rather than
Sure.
doing all 8 schools at one time?
Okay. Just one second here. In the enrollment, just as an example, I've shared that it's a volatile time, and usually October is the time we kind of get a little settling there, where people are moving in and moving out. Elementary South is the elementary I'm watching the closest, because we were at what we were going to predict to be. We were around 740 number, and that was looking good. We were 2 weeks out from school, and then they gained a tremendous amount of students, pushed us up into the 778, 780 range, and then within a day they lost 10 students and then dropped back down. So, and all that's fun and fine and dandy, but unless
You're just running numbers. Jill is remembering names and dropping them.
yeah,
Come on.
yeah, that's right. But unless it depends on where the kids fall. Where you lose kids and where you gain kids is really the critical piece, because in some grades you can add students, and in some grades you can't without it pushing us over the edge. So let me look at the one that you've got right there. That's 825.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the one you sent me in the morning.
All righty. So Aspen is as of 825, they're at 496, and their kindergarten is great. First grade has started to increase. We're looking at that number very closely to see if there's something we need to do there. There are 3 sections with 78 students, and we're watching that to see if any's move in, move out. We're pretty sure that that's going to hold right now. Second grade's at 84, and we've
Added a teacher.
yeah, we have 70 in third grade, which is good. Fourth grade, you just met the new fourth grade teacher today, and so that helps out. And then they have 115 in fifth, which is the last sort of bubble class, what we would call, and they have appropriate number of teachers there for us to.
So now Aspen has 4 bubble classes, 2nd, 4th, and 2 at 5th. Where are these classes? Because, if they have 4 more classes than what they are designed to hold, what have they displaced?
Aspen has, if we have to add, I'm going to answer this a little for you. If we have to add another teacher at Aspen, we're looking at art on a cart. We have music and orchestra has been displaced. It's still displaced. The library has a room designed for library, but it's being used for a class like enrichment, things of that sort. If we add another teacher, we're going to have to take the art room and put art on a cart. So they are.
So this is at Aspen,
This
right?
is at Aspen, yes.
And so right now, music and orchestra is displaced,
Mm-hmm.
and addition of any teacher is going to lead to art on a cart.
Right.
Okay.
That's the initial plan right
For
now.
about a year until that 5th grade gets out of there.
Right, right.
Yeah, but I just want to know, because,
Right. When the fifth grade goes, if we don't get 115 coming in the next.
Right.
If. And so right now, that would be, that's where we'd be looking at. And for folks to realize, many of these situations, the schools have been handling for many, many years and resolving those issues of space issues or overcrowded issues for quite some time. So that would be where we would be at Aspen at Elementary South.
That's true. Elementary North.
I was going to run down here
Okay.
real quick. Elementary South, it is doing fine. It's got 5 teachers in kindergarten with the right enrollment. It's got 6 at first grade, and first grade has gone up. It's actually into the 130 range now since this last update. Second grade has 6 teachers with 142. Third has 5 teachers, and it's at 122, which is a little bit below,
So
which is good.
watching.
Yeah. Fourth grade is at 5 teachers, and fifth grade is at 119 with 5 teachers. So in South, we have 2 overstacked classrooms. But remember that we also have many programs there. We have large bilingual student populations. So we have a lot of bilingual teachers, special ed. Since it's a large building, it has a larger special ed population. We still have our portables. We brought in 1 art classroom to get back into the art classroom to try to be able to use the kiln. But we still, if we didn't have those 2 portables, we would still have some more displaced. We still have music on the stage. We still take PE over to Aspen to be utilized. So we still have those issues. The same issues that we had last year are still the same issues we have this year at South. The distribution of the students and the grade level's a little better for us this year, just by luck. But we are still actively looking to find spaces. And if we were to have to add a class there, it would throw a curveball at us as well in where we might put it and how we would handle that situation.
Nick,
Yes, Robin has a question.
this is being nitpicky, but I don't know if I heard you right. In first grade at Elementary South, you said they hit 130 and got a sixth section?
Yes.
Okay, that surprises me that at 127, they would have been at 5, and at 130, that's the magic number.
We were higher earlier in the year, mid-year, we were looking at where we might, remember in mid-July, we were looking if we needed to add. At Elementary South, went into the 130s in mid-July, so we added the sixth section. Then we lost a few students, but now they've added students back in there, so at the first grade.
I had a question. At Elementary South, we have 2 classes, which is 2 extra, assuming those 2 classes are using the displays, which is because we have a double portable. But this is the last, if I remember, we had a 2-year
2
lease
years,
on
right.
that portable. So this is the last year on that portable. So we would
Unless
have.
we renew. Unless we renew.
Yeah,
we'll,
I mean.
we'll have to go to the village and ask to renew.
Yeah, but that's what, so, and then the other programming is also displays. The music is
Right,
at,
right.
on the stage, and the
Right.
P, we are still running kids to Aspen.
Mhm.
So, no, I just want to make sure where the displays kids are. And in the portable, what are we doing right now? We have health or art?
Health and art. There's
Yeah.
one art class and one health class out there.
That's the best? Okay. Okay.
Okay. Elementary School of Dual Language is falling within its numbers. They're all at 3. We've had some increases in kindergarten, but they're all at 3 sections.
Yeah, but I mean, even at 3, they cannot go
Right.
beyond 75.
Right,
They
no,
should
right,
be
right.
locked in at
Yeah,
that
yeah,
number.
we control that
Yeah.
piece.
Because we had a bubble class in
Right.
dual, which threw
It
in for
went
a
out,
curve,
right,
but
and it went
we
out
can't-
went out last year.
That's controllable, so.
Yeah. Town Line has, it's 75 at kindergarten, it's 83 at first, so we have 4 sections. We have 68, or close to that, at second with 3 sections. Third grade is at 3 sections with 74. Fourth grade is at 3 sections with 67. And then we have the last bubble class in 5th grade with 99, and we have 4 sections.
So where are those people? The 2 bubble classes, where are they located?
Well, Town Line lost a bubble class in dual language, and they lost a bubble class. Last year, they had 2 bubble classes, the 4th and 5th.
Yeah.
And so we were able to capture back the conference rooms. If you remember, the conference rooms were being utilized for some special ed servicing. But we still have enrichment on the stage. We still have, art was able to go back in the art room where it was designed to be. But we still have enrichment on the stage, and we have some displaced. Let me look here, I had a note on it.
Was health still displaced? It was
I
displaced.
believe so.
I think health might still be
Health
displaced.
is still displaced.
Yeah, because if they had 3, because if counting if dual language and town line had 2, so they had 3, so now they are 2, so there's only 1 who went back, so that,
Right.
so the,
Weren't
so the
they
art went
converting-
back to its classroom, so,
Health is on a cart, enrichment is on the stage. We captured the conference rooms back.
And weren't they converting a computer lab in there, I thought I?
no,
No,
that's
that's
middle
middle
school.
school.
Is that the middle school?
Yeah, that's middle school.
They didn't have a
And
computer.
We
we
didn't have a
have
computer
small,
lab.
like, technically, you look at the library, there's a small room off the library. We're utilizing that for enrichment or special education services, depending on the year. It really isn't designed for that, but since the building's above its capacity, we're using that for that space as well. So we're still, out of the design capacity of the building, because you still have enrichment on a stage, art on a cart. You have special ed in a library
closets.
room, and so there's still some space issues there each year. But we did capture a class because we lost a bubble class out of that particular one. Then we talked about Aspen,
Yeah, we talked about elementary south,
right?
town line,
just
dual
talk about
language,
north.
Right.
elementary north.
Elementary North. Elementary North is in the same situation it was last year. We did reduce the fifth grade by one teacher and reassign them. So they still had the same number of classrooms and teachers as they did last year. And right now, we converted the room that had the stairs and it was being used for health at times, and that's been converted into a classroom to be utilized. And I forget exactly what program's in there. It's not a classroom. It's like bilingual programming.
And so we're watching their
Yeah.
fourth grade, which is at
More.
108.
Yep. And some of the, and remember, for elementary north, when you look at those numbers, some of that indicates LLP students are assigned to a homeroom, and some of them are in the classrooms receiving education there, and some of them are pulled out. And so we do have some programming there that gives you a higher number than what may actually be in the classroom.
So
throughout the
actually,
day.
what is the capacity of elementary north? If you take the LOP students, we have about 10 classes or 7 classes in there, right? Because if we say it's 4 sections per grade, and then it's 6 times 25, it comes out,
If you look at, there's 100 students per grade, and you've got 6 grade levels, there would be 600 student capacity there.
yeah. But it's not the 600
right,
capacity
it's-
because LOP takes
Right,
a lot,
LLP
right?
takes out some of the classrooms.
So
it
what
drops
is the
it around
capacity?
About 550 is right around where they're at. So,
So elementary north runs at 550 is their capacity.
right. Now, changes in the inclusionary practices have helped that building a great deal with servicing student needs appropriately, and that helps us utilize spaces a little better. And then middle schools, I gave you some enrollments for the middle schools to see where they're at. They are up in their enrollment. Middle North is the one we're watching the most. They still are, for like Middle South, they're using the PE, uses the hallway spaces. The chorus is still in the cafeteria. The cafeteria for seating for students in there, we've gotten approval for more students just because the capacity is there. So we've been working with the fire department. We're all safe. We have some folks sharing offices and staff, sharing some classrooms. So we're still the same situation at South and at Middle North. We're still doing PE in the cafeteria, which has been going on for years. We have 2 computer labs with the deployment of the devices. We've converted to computer labs. That gives us some extra classroom space, but the enrollment is up in those buildings, and we'll be watching that carefully and how we can help that. Part of the problems at the middle schools is not only just the number of classrooms, but the appropriate capacity for PE, appropriate capacity for your music or orchestra, the appropriate capacity for your cafeterias. All of those other spaces were not designed for the number, so many students that are there. But we're across the board, we're still in the same situation we were last year. And what we represented last year has been going on in most of our buildings for quite some time, where we've had something that's been displaced. The buildings, the principals do a nice job with their staff. The staff do a tremendous job making it work every year and trying to find the right spot and making recommendations that this space would be better for the program than this space because of proximity to classrooms. Art is always, not art, music is always an interesting one because it's a little noisy. So depending on where you put it, once you have to move it out of its design location, you've got to be very careful where you put it so it doesn't disrupt the learning of the rest.
And Middle South has LOP, their house there, right?
Right, and then, yes, they do.
So then their capacity is lower because of the LOP numbers there?
Slightly, it doesn't have quite the same impact as it does at elementary north because of the number of students, because you're talking about 6 grade levels and 3 grade levels. But yes, it does take up 2 classrooms.
I know for a while there was some mention of moving LOP to Middle North because it sort of makes sense if they're going to be included in the general ed classrooms at elementary north that they stay with those students. But are we just going to shelve that discussion for now given our capacity issues at Middle North, or?
It's something that I still want to work with the team to see, is that a possibility? Some of it is dependent on what our long-term solution is to space to help that happen.
Right.
And it would be stair step. So 1 year would be 6th grade and then 7th grade and 8th grade. So it wouldn't be an impact all at once. But we have to have confidence once we start that stair step that we do have the location for them to be.
Okay.
And Middle North is increased. You look at the building, the ability of the building to house students. They may have lower enrollment than Middle South, but they have less capacity for
Right.
the enrollment they have.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
Right,
I
right.
don't want people to think we forgot about that discussion. We're either
no,
going
thank you.
to
No, it-
purposely put it off because we don't have a permanent solution, or, yeah.
If we, until we have a long-term solution, either an additional space or how we could
Sure.
make space over there for it.
Any more questions?
there's one positive note with these numbers, is our kindergarten class is at 415, which is substantially lower than our average or expected of a 450. So I know one number is not a trend, but, and it's also not just that it's lower, but it's distributed kind of how we wanted to see the distribution among the buildings. So we don't have, too many kindergartens in one and too few in another. It's pretty much in line of what we had expected and what we wanted to see. So.
And if you recall, when we did the roundup, I call it the kindergarten roundup, but parents come in, we've noticed over the previous years that about 80% of our kindergarten enrollment comes to that event. And so we took that number and then did the math and worked it out. This is still a little bit lower than what we had predicted that to be, but we did expect that we might have just a slightly smaller class this year. But 450 is roughly the average. If you remember last year's fifth grade was at 502. That was huge. It's a big class, but I think in the future we're going to see larger than 450 as an average. So we'll take a little breather right now. It's not a trend.
One number's not a trend,
We'll take any
but we'll take it.
space.
I was
we
going to
get.
say, we need relief wherever we can get
Can I
it.
run
So.
down to the Cuneo while we're
I
on
think
that?
that skunk coverage on the news the other day should probably help a little.
I'm going to jump down to the Cuneo Farms information, since we just sort of talked about enrollment and you have some thoughts of numbers in your mind and you've seen some the placement of the students. So with the Cuneo Farms development, I was able to reach out to them, and I did give you some information on what they're expecting for selling of homes, and just looking briefly here for my notes somewhere, but they will have the first home coming online coming up before the end of this year, and they're expecting roughly about 120 K through 8 students. We don't know how that 120 plays out per grade, and that does cover us from K through 8. I don't know what their prediction would be for the high school. I might ask for that because it might give me some idea of what I can break those out by grades. But it is supposed to take 3 years for them to fully develop. The gentleman I talked to said they would be open to some questionnaire, if it wasn't too detailed, but some questionnaire to folks that are looking at purchasing a home. I told them it'd be very helpful for us, especially if we could get a read on the bilingual status in the house, even if they speak another language. That helps us. Part of the problem is if they're signing a contract and building a home, it doesn't give us a year lead time, but it could give us a little bit of an idea of what staffing might be dependent on when we got that information from them. Here it is. The location to assign Cuneo, the only, was sitting with some administrators, we're just working through the preliminaries, and where do we think they go? The only thing we've taken is that if the elementary moves out, if the kindergarten moves out of the buildings, what types of spaces does that provide? And then we have to back out what are the displaced programs and put them back into classrooms and say what available space is there. So with that initial review, and I haven't sent those notes to you, but just in that initial piece of work, if you assign Cuneo to one particular building and they're going to get, let's say, 100 students, K through 5, we still think that we still have, putting it in one building still puts us in a capacity issue depending on what that building is. Elementary South, I would not suggest initially, just because they've had tremendous growth. And if you pull out 125 and you put in 100, we haven't made any ground, we haven't solved anything. So they're kind of off the board just in the initial review. That gives us, looking at Aspen and North are the two prominent ones I'm looking at right now. We'll review Town Line, but looking at Aspen and North, if they lost their kindergarten, what would the impact be of displaced programs and programming if those go in there? I'm hoping to have some of that preliminary work for you before the next board meeting, send it out to you and just say, here's what the numbers look like. The other thing we have to look in is what do we think? We don't know what that community is going to look like in the way of demographics, and it's almost impossible to guess for that. But we do know what our demographics are for our bilingual and some other programming within our buildings, and we can estimate a percentage. If we have 120 students, and let's roughly say 10% is our average for special ed, it's a little higher than that, but you could figure out how many students might need special ed services. So we're actually going to look at the program implications and see how that will play into that and make the best estimates we can where we go. But the first initial piece is when you take the kindergarten out, if you put Cuneo in one elementary, whatever that elementary is, without an additional plan for space, it's going to put it back probably to the same situation it's in currently, unless we make some other adjustments or look at some other adjustments that might be. That is not to suggest to the board to split the neighborhood. It's just that's right now sort of the reality if we're looking at, especially if we take South off of the table. And if you look at Aspen and Townline are running at 75 per grade level, and we're probably going to be somewhere between 80 to 100 for K-5 in the age group is just a quick estimate. That might be higher than that, so we might be looking at Elementary North, but we're going to look. Aspen potentially could have space depending on how the bubble classes and how those play out through the year. So we'll be looking at those programming pieces as well. But they did seem open to the idea, concept of a potential note. There are 128 homes that are being built there, and I gave you the breakdown for the 3 bedrooms and the 2 stories and that. But we'll continue to work with them and see what we can come up with.
Any questions? Next discussion item is bagels with the board update.
Didn't know if the board members wanted to share something from there.
We had 1, 2, 3, 4 bagels with boards. No updates. Well, these are bagels with board, but we also were there to. We didn't offer bagels or coffee, but we were there at the residency events too. All the 3 days, we covered a lot out there. But the residency events, we didn't. From the overall review that I had, we didn't have a lot of people stop by on one-on-one conversations, but it was successful in the fact that we could get a lot more people to take the surveys, whether they took them online or they took paper copies, and we had Spanish copies printed out there too. We had the survey in Spanish, but Dimitri was very nice in having, we had 4 Chromebooks out there, so that was a benefit of being there for the residency event. Robin and Wes were there at the Aspen Library, which was in the morning, if I'm not mistaken. I was there at the Village of Vernon Hills, which was in the morning again. Julie and I were there at the Sullivan Center in the evening, and then I was there in the morning at the Victory Center. And overall, we got a few comments, but I was kind of disheartened that nobody came to talk to us. Felt kind of lonely. Because, I mean, we did put a lot of time and effort from ours, to be there. And we really wanted to hear from people, and the turnout was not good. But we are always here by email, in person. You can call us, and we'll be here to take your comments or questions that you might have.
And I don't know that we need to give up on the concept. I mean, we could just try it at a different, play around with the dates and times a year, sometimes in that time of summer, people just are not tuned
I don't
in.
see. I was just disheartened for the time that we tried, and
Yeah, I
we
wasn't
truly
surprised.
wanted. It was people didn't come, so that was just. I'm not saying we won't do it again. Like I said, the residency event I think was really good because we did.
I agree.
We
Yeah,
did
that was a
meet a
good
lot of people,
spend of time.
even though they didn't. A few people came one-on-one, but it was fine. At least they saw us that we were there. They saw that we were available to talk to them at any point. It helped put names to faces or faces to names, whatever, because a lot of people didn't know who we were as board members, so that was good. But I wish there was a better turnout at the other places. I know even the one which we did, the others we can say was a daytime event, but even the one Julie and I did in the evening, it was at Sullivan at 6:30 to 7:30, and 3 people came. So anyway, but we are here anytime you want to reach us.
Survey will be closed.
Survey will be closed on the 31st. So please, 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 people who are watching, you might have taken the survey, but tell your friends, tell your neighbors, please have as many people you take the survey as possible. Once it's closed, we will run the numbers. We will tell you what the results we got, what the community's feedback was to us. So as many people as they take it will be helpful. So please get your neighbors, friends, anybody who hasn't taken the survey to take the survey.
We have a capacity issue we got to solve. We need the information from folks on what's the best way to solve it.
The next first day
Oh, I was
update.
going to add something really quick.
Sure,
So
sorry.
I think going forward, with Bagels on the Board or however we choose to do things, that it's important that we try to make ourselves available where at events where people are already there, because I think that that's, the best way that if they're already there, they might mind talking to us, but they're not necessarily going out of their way to an event that we've planned. And then lastly, I just wanted to ask Nick, I know it's going to take a long time to convert the paper copies to
Done.
email. Oh, I was just going to ask when we were getting them.
I asked Wendy to enter the
I know it's a lot of
surveys,
work, so
and she's got that taken care of, and we've kept the surveys in a sealed envelope.
thank you,
And
Wendy.
I've
I'm
talked
sure.
to Link Strategies. They know the date to close it, and then they'll immediately start running reports for the board. I'll forward those to you as soon as we have those.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Wendy did a nice job. Appreciate all her efforts.
Yes, we do.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
The next first day updates.
We had our first day. It was great. If you hadn't been out there, 60 had some construction. It started the morning we started our bus route, so I apologize to folks where buses might have been running a little bit slower than we had anticipated, or the traffic around the schools got a little askew, and a lot of the side streets got crowded because the 60 was really just shut down at times. And but besides that, reports from the building principals said it was a good, smooth start for the most part for them, except for a little bit of the traffic, like we said, for off of 60. Every kid had a homeroom and a seat, and that was good. We were able to get more information on folks that were coming or not. So at this point, it looked like it was a pretty smooth and good start for the buildings. Kids were excited. And we'll kind of expand this from first day to sort of first week updates that we did resolve some transportation issues for folks where somebody might have been at the wrong bus stop or missed their bus. We took care of that for parents and worked with them, and I appreciate Gloria and the transportation staff working through that. Also today, Middle School North received their Chromebooks deployed. We planned for a 2-day deployment, and they were on top of it, and we got it done in one day. Went very smoothly. So Dimitri and his staff and the folks in the building really planned very, very well to get those taken care of very quickly, very efficiently. So that was exciting. Got some good pictures. Saw some kids are pretty excited about that, and some teachers are pretty excited about that as well. The schools are in full force. Clubs and programs that we have going on this time of year are going to get started up, if not already. The learning has already started day one. They got in. And the first couple of days, especially at the people need to realize that we spend a lot of time for our staff to get to know the students that they have. We want them to take the time to understand who the students are, get to know them, get to set sort of expectations in the classroom, and take our time to really welcome everybody into the community. Each school develops their own community, each classroom develops their own community, and they do a nice job taking the time to work with them and welcome the students back and get to know each other. So it's very exciting to see that go on.
With not doing the kindergarten evaluations like they had in the past, have the teachers noticed that, it's caused any issues, or everything's still smooth sailing?
Yeah, we haven't got any reports on that. We'll ask to follow up, but that is not, we're not doing that anymore. We do ask about 5 to 6 weeks in, we actually do ask the first grade teachers to give us some reports on the kindergartners that came in to help us evaluate how the first full day kindergarten, do they see a difference in their coming in. Our kindergarten teachers,
I don't think that was what I was asking. I don't know if there's confusion.
The HKI or whatever that they used to give.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any reports that's missing data that's causing them any concern at this point. Well,
with the disbursement of the students among the building, there's been no issues. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, no, it's not been an issue. No, that's the question I was answering for, but I was also adding on and since we have full day kindergarten, we've added an evaluation we asked the first grade teachers to tell us what the incoming kindergartners are like, to see if they're different than what they had experienced when we had half day as well. So.
And then it wasn't something I had noticed specifically on summer projects, but when we were talking about working on the parking lots and stuff like that, I was wondering, is the plan to leave that little patch at Aspen for the new traffic pattern, which I know has been successful, gravel, or is it going to be paved?
I think we'll eventually pave it.
Yeah.
Right now, but we're going to work it into the budget for summer
Sure.
Summer project as we go. But the traffic pattern at Aspen seems to be working.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things we have an AT meeting tomorrow, and we're going to just talk about our supply drop-off and our welcome back nights. It gets very crowded
Yeah, I
during
was
the
gonna
day.
actually
and
mention
so
that
what are
too,
some,
like,
how can we stagger the times on
different
both
times,
campuses,
yes.
and what are some good times for folks?
is
So we're
very
working
crazy.
on that. But it seemed to go very well, and the principals had good things to report, and we're excited to see them coming in.
I'd like to say that I like how the kindergarten consolidated the curriculum night, the play dates, the tour into one night. 2 years ago, I had 4 different days or nights that I had to be at school. So it was really nice to be able to go there at once and get everything done.
Unless you can't make it, and then you go to nothing.
But we are trying to look at
Logistically, it was great for me. So thank you.
Okay.
Next is the fun part, Press 95. I know you've all read it in minutest of details. So here is some of the first draft reading and some things that I want you guys to take a particular look at because we need to have a discussion about it next time. So the first thing, there's some of them, the policies that have been modified by the press packet, and so we need to make sure that we are okay with that. And some which is just a 5-year review policy, so which have not been modified, but if we want to change them after you read them, I'll let you know which those are. So the first one was the Board of the closed meeting minutes. It was just a language that was changed. There's nothing major in it. That is the policy number 2:220-E3.
Not showing up.
Huh? Sorry.
There it is. I have a totally blank page at some point on mine. Okay.
The next is the policy number 2:260. It is the uniform grievance procedure. In this, one of the things that I want to mention, it is about a website or the Web Content Accessibility Guideline, which is a WCAG 2.0. Our websites have to be accessible and addressing the website accessibility stuff. So the school district website has to meet this guideline. And so I wanted to ask the attorneys, what do we have to do? By when do we have to do it? And Dimitri.
Well, so there are 7:275 and 8:70 are two that I'm forwarding to the board for review. They had suggested some board review. I'll add that to it.
Yes.
And ask them what the details are. If anything needs to be done, we may be completely in compliance. We don't know yet.
Yeah, so it's our websites have to be in compliance with this WCAG 2.0 guidelines. So I wanted to make sure that we got the okay from the attorneys, had a look at it and see if we were in compliance. If not, how long do we have to get it done by? And then we need to. One of the things that is we need to change is Brad is still on the
Right.
as our compliant manager. We could send it to him. I don't think his current employers will like it, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
but it'd be kind of fun to just send it to them, you know?
I'd be okay, but I don't know. The next one is policy number 6:80. It is teaching about controversial issues. And I had a question, what constitutes a controversial issue? Because it just says controversial issue. Where in our policy do we specify or in our handbook that what is a controversial issue?
Nowadays, it's everything.
So is everything, so we don't teach anything? Yippee! I mean, is
No,
that...
we do
You can
teach it. We just don't.
controversial issues.
We
You just
just
have to be.
we teach it. We just have to be sensitive.
Right, be sensitive to that need.
Yeah, but that's what I mean is like, but who would constitute a...
I was kind
mean,
of kidding.
It's like, that's a question just I had. I mean, I don't, somebody might have the answer, but I just didn't know where was it written of what it was before we had somebody coming at us.
I don't know there's a written definition specific, or I can look and ask, but in each district, depending on what the issue might be, it could be something could be controversial in one district and not in another. So, but I'll look for a specific definition, the kind of guidelines we've used in the past.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we have the guidelines somewhere so we know. Then the next one is 6:180, and it is extended instructional programs. This is before and after school programs for students in grades K through 6. Our before and after is K through 8 or is K through 5? We need to change that, right? It says K through 6 out here.
Yes, it does. I'll double check.
Okay.
Yeah, because we offer tutoring K through 8. We offer all sorts of opportunities for kids.
So either it has to change,
Right.
so this needs to be figured out,
Right.
what it is. Because it's on our policy. The one of the main ones is the first one, which is orders to forego life-sustaining treatment. This is policy number 7:275. In this, we have to consult the board attorney for multidisciplinary team. It also is, there's some optional sentences that we might or might not want to add. So if all of you could please read them and see if you have an opinion about the optional sentences. It is, we can add either one of them to determine, this is the multidisciplinary team shall determine the guideline to be used by school staff members in the event the child suffers a life-threatening episode at school or at a school event. And they have given options that the superintendent or designee will ensure minutes are taken that summarize the decision and guidelines. Or the other option is the superintendent or designee will monitor the effectiveness of the guidelines it's established. So do we want to do that, or we will just not add any? So
They should read it and then send
so
me
if you
questions.
could please
Right.
read it in details, and we'll also consult with the board attorney because we need to consult on this thing because it's the ones that had no changes, but if you wanted to take a quick read at it, is the policy 2.210, which is organizational board of education meetings. Policy number 4:70, which is resource conservation. Policy number 6:290, it is about homework. Policy code 6:330, achievement and awards.
6.290 for homework.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest everybody read 6.290 for homework. It is a topic I think that we need to discuss the district, see where we're at and where we're going. You just had some information was provided to you, one of those board flyers previously, but it is a topic we need to have a conversation.
In what context would that be?
In context of like homework, or should we have
No,
it?
the topic that we want to discuss related to that.
Well, I think what we want to look at is what our current policy is, and then what our actual practices are, and then the expectations for homework. Some folks think that a lot of homework is good. There's some research showed that is not necessarily the case. But what do we set as an expectation as a district, leadership of when homework's appropriate, what type of homework's appropriate, and what amount might be appropriate for the folks to be working with?
So are you thinking that the board would have a policy that all those schools and grades would follow?
I'm sorry?
Are you thinking that the board should have a policy that all of the grades and schools should follow? More specific? Is that what you're talking
Well,
about?
I think we need to, I don't remember the last time that one's been reviewed, but I think that we should review it and see if we need to bring it up to speed. And you always want to give some freedoms, obviously, leeway to the teachers in the classroom, but we want to review that and make sure, are we following this, and what messages are we sending through our policies?
Okay. Because the last time it was reviewed, before you were here, there were about 150 people in this room.
Don't read 6
Well, then let's do it just to see people come out.
Homework. No, but we just need to review that and see where we're at.
It's for next time. So 6:330, achievement and awards. Policy 7:80, which is release time for religious instruction and observance. And 7:160, it is about student appearance. So please read these policies if you feel this is something that the policies that I listed, the last 6 of them, they are not in the press packet because there are no changes that have been made by the, who gives us this packet? ISB? No.
Press packet from press.
It's from press.
Right.
So these they don't have any changes, but please read them. If you feel that we need to update them in any sort of form, we can do that and have a discussion. Like I said, the one that really needs a look at is the orders to forego life-sustaining treatment because it has optional language in it that we need to look at. And you will get us the board attorneys.
Yeah. I
Feedback on
told
that.
them today. He'd be getting some questions.
Okay, that's it. That's the press back in 95. That was quick. It was so interesting. No. Next.
You didn't do the action. You want to go back up? to
Yeah,
consent?
yeah, I'm going to do that. Next is the consent agenda. Any discussions? Any questions on the consent agenda? Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items as presented.
I second.
Motion by Robin, seconded by Bess. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Jason Drawn,
Aye.
Julie Simpson,
Aye.
Jeff Bard,
Aye.
Robin Cleek,
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye. Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Sonali Patel.
Aye. Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays. That's it. Superintendent's report.
Let me find my notes. I apologize. All right. Just to give us some updates on some of the items coming up, Cook Memorial Public Library is pleased to announce the winner of the 2017 Super Summer Reading Trophy for the second year in a row, Elementary South, Gail Martin and her team. Won the division with 45.5% of its students signing up for the library's summer reading program. Congratulations to the School of Dual Language for achieving a remarkable increase. Participation in dual language achieved an 8% increase of students signing up from one year to the next. Some activities, just to remind folks, it is a very busy time right now as we get started up on 8/29, dual language first and second grade curriculum night, parents only at 6:30 p.m. On 8/29, Middle North and Middle South, Fall Athletic Meet the Coach Night, parent meeting at 6:30 p.m. Those are always good to get a sense of what we're offering. 8/29, Elementary South, Kindergarten, Second Grade, and Fourth Grade Back to School Night, parents only at 6:30 p.m. On 8/30, Town Line First and Second Grade Curriculum Night, parents only at 6:30 p.m. On 8:30, Elementary South First, Third, and Fifth Grade Back to School Night, parents only at 6:30 p.m. And on the 31st, Dual Language Third and Fifth Grade Curriculum Night, parents only at 6:30 p.m. On 9/4 is Labor Day. There are no school for the students. On 9/5, Town Line Third and Fifth Grade Curriculum Night. Guess what? Parents only at 6:30 p.m. On 9/5, Aspen Kindergarten through Second Grade Back to School Curriculum Night. On Friday of last week, they had a nice big dance in the celebration at Aspen. That went very well. Heard good things of that. On September 7th, Aspen's 3rd through 5th grade back to school curriculum night at 7 p.m. 9/8 Town Line Dual Language Back to School Ice Cream Social at 6:30 p.m. It says principals only. I don't know. No. And on September 8th, Elementary North Back to School Bash Curriculum Night at 6:30 p.m. So there's a lot of good stuff over the next few weeks. Please check the web site if you have questions or want to look at the calendar or contact the schools, and they'll let you know what's coming up and how to participate in those things. And we have a lot of folks that are participating. We have volunteers over the last 2 years have increased, so we appreciate our parents and community willing to come out and help and share the wonderful work we do with students.
To piggyback off Nick's statement, the curriculum night sign up. If you don't remember, please call Wendy. And we have Lincoln on October 3rd at 6:30 p.m. If anybody is interested or available in going, let me know or let Wendy know. That is. Robin was kind enough to give us a rough draft of what to say at the curriculum night, mostly touching topics on implementation of one-to-one technology in our middle schools, our growing enrollment, how communicating with us, telling people that we are available and always ready to hear their feedback, telling everybody to be patient with us and our administrators too at the same time. So that is
One more thing for me.
Sure.
One more thing on presentation calendar, we had conversation. The board asked for us to bring celebrations, and we did reach out and we've added in on the sign-up sheet the John Powers Building. We've asked them to come and share what they do there and how their students do with us. So that's something new, and we've also added it in Lincoln this year. I think they won a couple years ago, so they're going to come back and do that as be part of that as well. So that will be starting up fairly soon. I'll send out calendar to you or what dates through the year. You recall each school signs up at a different time, so what to expect.
Okay. There's a fall ISB meeting on October 11th it is at the Mundelein
Doubletree.
Doubletree. If you are interested, please reach out to Wendy again. The survey ends on August 31st. So please, anybody wanting to give us an opinion, please take the survey. The start of the school year has been great. As Nick mentioned, the buses ran a little bit late, but that is the first couple of days of school. It always happens. The kids are overwhelmed when they get into the bus, takes them longer time to sit down. Parents talk to the drivers. All 50 parents talking to the driver, slows the driver down. IDOT wanting to dig up the roads at an inopportune time slows it down. I would just request the parents, by the time you learn that the bus has been late, the teachers, the principals, the people who are receiving your kids already know. They've had 6 hours to work on that. Please be patient and kind to our administrators and teachers and people who are involved in getting your kids are safe. If they are late to school by a little bit, everybody knows. Just please be kind. It's just the first few days. They'll be there. Everybody is okay. Our drivers are good. They're just new. Sometimes it takes time to find the house. The house numbers are not written. Kids are just trying to find their way. Just be patient and kind to everybody around you. That's it from me for now. Any future topics for discussion?
So is the homework thing going to be talked about next time, or is that just like start thinking about it for some time down the road?
Just start thinking about it, read that. It's one of those that was listed.
As a
I
policy
just think
change.
just pre-read it and see if you have any thoughts or ideas. It won't be something we'll discuss and decide next meeting, but it's a conversation that I think we'll need to have through the year at some point to see where we're at and what we.
Just read the policy and see if it is broad enough, because we don't want our policies to be so tight that if we do something, then, it creates problems. So,
Right.
but just make sure that you're okay with the language. Either way, you go in it later, because we have to sign it and send it in.
Well, I read the pamphlet that you put in our folder last time. If you could, over the next however many weeks, send us any other reliable sourced information, that would be great.
I'll send you.
Because I like the pamphlet, but I mean, that's not enough information.
No,
tonight.
no, at all. There's quite a bit of little research out there and some indication of what's happening. So
I'm
we'll
sure
get some
there's
things together.
differing opinions as well.
Oh, yeah.
Of
that
course.
are-
Yeah, definitely. We'll show you what's coming up.
So what else is on the list for topics for future discussion?
The topics for future discussion, some of the ones have been from today, which is the summary of supplies and materials, a breakdown of those things, as well as insight into the cost savings, a breakdown of what has been done. Staff, those have been the couple of ones. We're still waiting on the calendar for presentations and reports so that we know when each department or thing is presented, or we are getting a report, because those are some of the yearly things. So that has been a presentation and report calendar.
You'll have that by the next meeting.
So that is the only one that I have on me. Anything else?
Which meeting is the survey going to be discussed
That's
at?
what I was going to ask.
Since it's done on this week, I think they can run us reports fairly quickly. So I'll get those to you as soon as I can. So at least by Monday of next week, I think we'll have some preliminary information for you. So I think we could put it on for the September 11th discussion, so you can share what information you found, because we need to come back to that conversation of what do we want to do as we move forward if we're full. So I would think it should be on there for the 11th.
Anything else?
I just want to mention, oh, go ahead.
Just real short, Village announced today that they would also be doing road work on Aspen in the next couple weeks. So
Please be nice. Please be kind to your
I thought they
drivers.
said I thought they
Great
said
timing.
Sullivan in between Aspen
Sullivan
and Deer
yeah,
Path.
but there's going to be more road work in the neighborhood of Deer Path and
Please be
around, so-
kind. Please be patient. You're dropping kids off to school. Using bad language is not a good idea. Anywhere, to anybody.
Yes, and be careful of all our walking, riding, scooting students.
Just
bus if
be
you can.
careful.
Slow down around the schools.
Please be patient.
You had something?
As Mr. Collins today sent on his Remind app, Vernon Hills will be really happy to take your donations if you got speeding on the roads.
I did like that reminder. That was funny.
Did Jeff have something?
Yeah, you had
No, I was going to mention the same
take your
thing.
donation.
People have gone the summer without seeing kids, as many kids walking around and near the schools, and be safe driving, and then this also texting and.
Oh, for
talking
God's
on the
sake,
cell
stop
phone.
texting. Seriously.
People need to not be doing that. It is against the law, so.
Can I have a motion, please?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Robin, seconded by Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, 7 ayes, 0 nays.